On Insightful Inspiration, Isabel Launderville chats with a mosaic of brilliant individuals that help shape the insights industry. We live stream episodes to LinkedIn, and you can listen on all major podcast networks. Join us, and please subscribe so you won't miss our guests' insightful inspiration and hear what drives them and how they get inspired to be successful in the insights industry and beyond. Insightful Inspiration is brought to you by Sylvester & Co., an award-winning qualitative research firm with half a century of experience.
Welcome back to episode 20 of Insightful Inspiration, your go-to podcast for discovering how to truly understand and connect with your audience. Making research matter is about creating a culture where customer understanding drives every decision. But how do we make insights stick and transform organizations from the inside out? I'm your host, Isabel Launderville, owner and chief insight seeker at Sylvester & Co., where we've been dedicated to understanding people for over 5 decades. As always, feel free to comment during the live broadcast or leave your thoughts on Spotify. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Gail Benecke, a transformable leader who knows exactly what it takes to build customer obsession into a company's DNA. As a seasoned executive, she works in insights, marketing, and merchandising. Now, as co-host of the She Means Business podcast, she continues to share insights that drive business transformation. Throughout her career, Gail has been a passionate advocate for putting customer understanding at the heart of business decisions. Now, just in the insights department, but across entire organizations. Welcome to the show, Gail.
Hi, thanks, Isabel. Thank you for having me.
Of course, this is so lovely. I think we go way, way back. We've been
do.
talking about doing this for a while.
Yes.
And so it's nice to actually finally do it and sit down and have a chat.
This is so great. I'm excited.
Yay. Okay, so let's start with your journey. So
Okay.
How did you become such a champion for customer understanding in your leadership roles?
Well, I kind of stumbled into it, I think as many do in our profession. But I got a job at Canadian Tire that was kind of in insights. It was innovation and it was doing a little bit of research. And then I actually got another job at Spin Master, which is a toy company. And when I was interviewing, the HR woman she and I really hit it off, and she basically said, can you do business development? And I was like, sure. She's like, can you do marketing? I'm like, sure. And she's like, well, what about insights? Do you like kids? Can you talk to kids? I'm like, sure. Little did I know that was going to just propel me in my career into a whole new area and industry. And I went and became a moderator and did all the research and kind of I taught myself. I learned from the ground up, which was amazing. And then I just kind of continued there at various roles. I went to Loblaw, I went to Target, I did the same thing at Labatt. And then when I kind of pivoted out of insights officially, I then kind of continued to take that insights that's now in my DNA, I say. I take that insights into whatever role I do, whether it's merchandising or marketing or whatever's next.
And what does that actually look like or mean? It's part of your DNA. It's how is it in the conversation? Is it how you work with the insights team? Like, how does it actually play out?
Both. I think so. Firstly, it's in the way that I think. So I think that I think about the customer a lot. And everybody kind of says, do you start with the customer? Okay. But really it's like, does this make sense from a customer standpoint? Like oftentimes in business, we talk to ourselves and we're like, well, this will be great. And we spend a lot of money on this, and won't this be terrific? And it's really just taking a moment to be like, okay, like, does this actually make sense? I'll give you an example. When I was at Labatt, the marketing that they do is incredible, and it's beer. And we would have these conversations where we would sit there and we would analyze an out-of-home advertisement on a screen with a bunch of people huddled around it, looking at it. And I was the person in the room being like, guys, people are seeing this on a highway. They're barely looking at it for 2 seconds and they're driving by. Like, that's how you need to get the message across. And so I would make my boss like stand at the back of the room and like look at it. He was the head of marketing. And I would be like, okay, so now I want you to look at it. Now does it stand out to you as a customer? So it's things like that where it's like, actually think like the customer on behalf of the customer to as you're doing your work. And then as it happens to work with insights teams, I think I'm their number one ally. I give it all to me. But also I would say I'm probably difficult to work with because having been in insights, I'm very particular and also very critical. So I'm like, okay, but you can't ask it like that because nobody's going to be able to answer it like that. So
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if they like me. I think they do. I have
think-
good connections there.
I think you're probably the only one though that actually will challenge the status quo. You're like this, like industry standards. Like, well, this is how you're like, but why is that? Like, I remember you and I being, what were we? We were doing shop alongs or something like years ago, and you said, and I said, well, blah blah blah, and people, and this is how kind of the industry works. And she's like, but why is that? I was like,
I do that a lot. I do that, and I do that consistently in insights and anything else. I'm just like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm always testing logic and does this actually make sense? And I think it comes from not having traditional training. I mean, I am a trained moderator. I kind of did the whole thing, but I kind of come at it a little bit, I think, organically. And I think also, and when we've talked about this, my background with kids, having interviewed and researched kids, that makes you just question everything because they question everything and they're not going to take any of your BS. And so you have to know why you're doing what you're doing, and it has to feel right.
Yeah, and I feel you have to be intuitive. It has to be organic. I do a lot of kid research.
Yeah.
And at one point, they will literally tell you, no, that's not right. Or there could be something, or a 6-year-old will just tell it like it is. I do feel it if you're a good, anyways, different people, different opinions, but I'm such a quali for having said that, but people, different opinions. But I mean, if you can hold a group and do kid research, I do feel that it makes you a better moderator with adults.
I agree. I agree.
Like, they're real people. Like if you look at kids as real people, you don't talk down or don't have that kindergarten serve tea like voice, and you actually level with them, and actually they have so many opinions.
You know, I think kids are the best, especially if you catch them at like 6, 7, 8, where they haven't learned to lie. And because that's the problem with adults. Adults will lie because, and not even on purpose. They just, we tell so many white lies just in our day to day, and they want to tell people what they want to hear, and they want to agree with people, and they want to seem smart, and they have all of these ego. And if you catch kids before the ego, it's gems. They just will tell you the truth, and that's what you want, obviously.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'll never forget, I had this one group, and I thought I was with these 6-year-old girls, and I thought I was so good, and had all these insights, and I got them to circle I showed them 3 designs, and I got them to circle the ones that they liked. And right at the end, packed up the group, and then right at the end, this little girl came up to me, and she tugged on my shirt, and she's like, I just want you to know I didn't circle the mermaid, and it's not because I don't like mermaids. It's because I don't like that mermaid. And I was like, oh my God, that blew my mind. And then I went straight to my designers and I said, from now on, you do not put anything in front. I do not put anything in front of kids that is not literally what you plan to do.
Yeah.
Because they are not going to take figuratively some mermaid. They don't understand this idea of a mermaid. They are choosing between that mermaid and that dolphin and that unicorn, period. And then I applied that same logic to adults and say, I'm not putting anything in front of adults because God knows what they're imagining. God knows what, if it's not literally the same thing, they could imagine that it looks a little more blue or it looks a little more whatever. Yeah. And so I applied that logic. Now, obviously that matters, depending on where you are in the research, it can be more literal or less. But it was that girl changed me forever. She was so great. And she didn't even do anything. It was me. I was just like, I took what she said I took it very literally.
But I think that's what they do. That's why you have to show up and it tests you as an insights person or a moderator, because you have to tell it like it is and show it, because they will take it at face value.
Yeah.
And I think there's some cultures, like this notion of don't get caught up in the weeds and think more conceptually and holistic. I think some people are better at that. Some cultures are better at that. Some languages actually do facilitate that, enable that more easily. Like the English language can be quite conceptual, quite like, how do you feel about that? Which is such a fabulous question because it's kind of emotional, but it could be rational. And depending on where the spontaneous reaction goes,
That's
like
right.
you cannot do that in French because in French, you need to use the right
Interesting.
word. And so you need to actually go at that in a very different way because you cannot say, how do you feel about something?
Oh,
You have to
interesting.
say what does your
What do
brain
you
say? What
think?
does your heart say? What does your gut say? And it's such an intuitive kind of culture that your gut intuition is separate. So we have to go about it as, what are your three brains saying
Oh,
about
interesting. I feel like if I asked somebody what they feel about something, I would expect a gut. Like it's like, I would expect a gut,
Yeah.
maybe a heart, but mostly a gut reaction, which is
But
I
you
consider
do
a
get more of
combination.
a visceral reaction versus
Yes.
speaking to the
What do
brain
you think about
first.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, voila. Which,
Yeah.
and like in French, you don't like and love something. You can just love something or hate something.
Oh. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's really
What if you're
interesting how
like kind of medium on it? Like, like love declaring your love for
you get it.
something is
No, so it's interesting. So different. So then you get into the informal. So we're gonna do a sidebar. So
okay.
then that you get into the informal language. So in France it's different, but in Quebec, you do that. So they're really good. They speak in images, so they speak visually a lot. That's why what are your three brains saying?
Yeah.
Is sort of because they're a bit more ebullient.
Yeah.
So you tap into the culture sort of knowledge to moderate better and to sort of
Love that.
get a better question out. But when it comes to showing the intensity, like if you really love something, they will say it twice. So you love something.
Oh, so you
Use
just
it.
really
So
love it. You either love
yeah, so
it. So
you
then one
love. So
love,
do you love it or do you love it?
right.
Like you
Oh.
double click on the
That's
word
so
and
great.
there's a different sort of way into it, which is, and it works with everything. Like you don't just go up the stairs, you go up. Like there's something about like they just duplicate certain words
To emphasize.
to emphasize it.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it.
So it's a different play on words, but you need to sort of tap into it, which I think kid research goes into as well, which is really funny.
No, they're the best.
Yeah. How do you're saying you are actually doing it. I love your example of like shifting the focus, shifting sort of the context in which they're looking at this out of home advertising in the office on the computer screen versus on a billboard on the side of the highway,
Where
not
you're
in the
going.
car.
Yeah.
So I get that. Is there other ways, like how do you get others to start having that reflex, having that intuition, and not just only being the one actually taking them there?
I think there's a couple of ways. So one of the things that I always said was that when I was in insights, I used to say, I'm not an insights person. I'm a business person. And what that meant was I am a marketer when I'm talking to marketers. I am a merchant when I'm talking to merchants. I am an operator when I'm talking to operations. My job is to know your business. I'm just looking at it from a customer lens. And so I'm not looking at the creative. I'm not working with the agency. I'm not for marketing, for example, or merchandise. I'm not dealing with the vendors and I'm not looking at the margins. I'm thinking of it from the customer lens. And what that allowed me to do was to know the business. And then I can have conversations with whoever on the other side of the business in a way that was relevant to them because I'm thinking of their business like they are, but just from a different lens. And then I think the idea is, well, the way that I approached it was now I can add value. So let me sit on your meetings. Let me see the kind of conversations that you're having, the kind of questions that you're asking, where you have doubts, where you're like, oh, I wonder what the customer thinks of this. And they wouldn't say it that way. People typically don't think of it so literally, but they'd be like, well, how do people buy this? Like, how many do they buy? Or like people talk in questions all the time, but they're not then writing down that question and saying, I'm going to go and contact insights and figure out what the answer is. That's what I was doing. So I was in those same meetings while they're just getting along and having conversations. And I'd be writing down, okay, so for women's apparel, they don't know if they're trying it on. They don't know, how long they're in there for. They don't know if the sizes are good. And I would make a list of all, and it would then form the basis for research on that business.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go do it. And then I would come back to them and kind of reveal what the answers were. And I was helpful. And it often, most of the time, I always used to tell my team, I'm like, if somebody comes to us and asks for research, we failed. We're too late. It means that we didn't predict their problems sufficiently. Now we can't do it all the time, but 90% of the time, I would have people come to me and be like, we were just in a meeting and we were just talking about this and we were wondering this, and I would either say, it's actually in field right now. I will get you that answer next week. Or, you know what? I just got that. Let me review it and I'll get back to you. Let's set up a meeting. Like, I considered my job as predicting their questions. And the only way you can do that is if you insert yourself into the business and understand and know the business.
And how do you insert yourself successfully? How do you so there's two questions here.
Okay.
First off is, how do you get a seat in this, like invited to these meetings? How do you get a seat there? And so you can listen and sort of, it's like doing research to better do research. Like
100%.
You need empathy to build empathy. That's the empathy part, right? That's the starting point. So how do you get there? And then the other thing is, like, I mean, you're human. Like, there's just so many meetings you can sort of sit on. Like, there's X number of hours in a day. So I think those are two questions I'm sure.
I love it. I've never been asked that. And I love that, because now I'm thinking about it. The first question is, I think it starts with the relationships. Like, you just have to know everybody and, get along with them. And for me, it came, I mean, I'm thinking of examples from Spin Master, examples at Target. These were places where I really genuinely liked the people. I was invited by some. So there was always a few people that just like sought me out to say they wanted research. And I was like, okay, amazing. This is great. And then that seemed to infect other people. And so I think relationships are super important, and know that and you don't even have to say anything. I would go to meetings. I'd just be a fly on the wall. I wasn't there to present. I wasn't there to ask any questions. I just would say, can I sit in on your team meeting to just hear the kind of challenges that you're having and get to know your business? And most of the time people are like, sure. Like, how does that bother anybody? When an insights person wants to sit in on your meeting and not say anything, and you have to not say anything, and so that they believe you that you're not going to say anything.
Yeah.
And so I would do that, and it would just kind of catch on. It did get out of control in some cases, because if you're doing your job well, then more people want the research, and you don't have infinite funds or resources or time. And so then you have to prioritize. And again, it comes back to relationships and communication to say, so that they understand. And I actually got very, very transparent. In some cases, I remember even at Spin Master, I got very transparent with what my research plan was. And I would demonstrate, I'd be like, is your project that you are coming to me with more important than any of these? Because I'm happy to debate. And they would be like, oh, no, you should probably do that. Okay, I'll wait. People are reasonable. They know that maybe their tiny little business with their tiny little question doesn't trump some big value question or some customer, tracking that might benefit them.
Yeah.
So people are very good that way. And I think, generally speaking, the more transparent you are as a department, the more, the better. I mean, if you're closed, nobody knows what you're spending your time on, what you're doing, why you're doing it. They don't see you. They don't hear from you.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't help. So generally speaking, I would just say, just be transparent, invite yourself, invite them, share with them, and then be proactive to demonstrate that you can add value and then add value.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's something also that if you get it right a few times, then people start talking about it. And then
that's exactly what happened.
Internal advocates. Yeah. So I guess you just have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to pick who you're going to go to first, so that if you get those right, then it's going to catch on and people are going to start talking about it.
Well, that's exactly what happened when I was at Target, because when I showed up, it was still, we hadn't opened yet. And so nobody knew that I was there. I just kind of like snuck in through the back door, and I was there, and I was waiting for people to come and reach out to me. And so exactly that, I had to kind of wait for those early adopters who sought me out there. Like, I remember this one woman, the first woman that came to me, she's like, I heard that you're here and I really want to talk to you. And I was like, okay, I want to talk to you too. And then it became infectious.
Yeah. And I think there is this notion that, as because I think our roles are getting, so we come at it from different ways, but I think over the years, and we've been at this long enough that we've seen an evolution, and I think we've been successful. I like rewind 10 years ago, people were like, I don't want people to come to me and have me execute something. I don't want people to come and say, I need blah, blah, blah method, or I need a focus group, or I need a shop along. I'm going to speak qual because I do qual. But like, there's this notion of get me in, I want to sit at the table. I think we're here, we're there. So that's great. There's so much more. I think also this notion of a pull strategy versus a push strategy. Are there still I'm sure there's companies and instances where push strategy is what it is when it's true innovation and whatnot. But I feel like everybody's so much more like a pull kind of strategy. So consumer centricity is so much more like mainstream than it used to be. But I mean, we're no longer just researchers. This notion of insights being guarded, insights belonging only and being owned by the insight team, I think doesn't really exist anymore, does it?
I mean, listen, I've been out of the insights world in that capacity for a bit, so I don't know exactly. I feel like a couple of things. One is when I was in the role, eventually you do so many studies that you become wiser. Like you know, your opinion starts to be an informed one. And I was doing 150 projects a year, talking to 20,000 kids a year. Like you can't ignore it. And face to face, like you build a body of knowledge. So I think, and I think that's good, because then you actually can have conversations with people who come to you. And well, first of all, if anybody ever came to me and said, I want a focus group, I'd be like, whoa, cool your jets. What do you need to know? What, like, let's talk about it. And kind of have an intake process and then figure it out. And 9 times out of 10, I was like, actually, you actually need the opposite of what you were asking for. What you're asking is a quant question versus a qual question, and vice versa. So I think that's number one. And I do think, 10 years ago when I was in the space, it was very, I remember it being just very much people asking for research. So I don't know how much of it was put. I feel like it's more like, I don't know, the departments that I've been working with lately are more like, we're going to do this and send it and share it with you. But I guess now they're open. I feel like they're open. I don't know. I feel like it's both. I don't know, but I agree there's been an evolution, and I agree. I mean, people are talking about insights now. People never used to talk about it. I do feel like we went through this like difficult big data period where I felt like insights was like, yeah, we don't want to hear from people. We want the data and sorting through data and how do you deal with your data, and like there was all of that. I feel like we've come out of that a little bit. To return to appreciating what it's like to actually get a really juicy insight and what that can do for your business.
Yeah, I think the big data has been replaced by AI.
Exactly.
There's always a shiny new tool, to be quite honest. I love it because it does force us to shift things and look at things differently and get better, and it pressure tests sort of how we're doing it. And it also allows us to, I always say, like people ask me, how do you innovate? I innovate in a very human-centric way because I communicate with people and I build meaningful connections with them. That's how I get through. Yeah. And so how people amongst themselves relate to one another and talk to one another and forge those meaningful relationships, those are the tools I'm using. So communication tools have far more a greater impact on how I innovate than anything else. So when people started texting on their phone, when iPhones came in, when chatting came in, when Facebook, when the Second Life, when I think that has a huge impact, and we're surfing those waves because that's what we do. We talk to people. So we want to make sure that we are right there. Like you don't build a relationship with a team the same way. Like if you do teen research and you don't like use phones, like what are
you even doing?
Like what are you doing?
Right.
Where are you? I think there's also something like that. So coming back, so I know you've been out of insights for a while, and I appreciate your honesty towards that, but being out of insights, and I know it's part of your DNA, it's part of how you're hardwired to actually go to insights. But are insights less guarded? Is it like, are insights more easily available? Like, how do you break down silos, and how do you think silos are kind of broken down so that insights are kind of omnipresent and accessible to all? Do you see like there's something there?
I think that from my experience, I think there's a lot more knowledge of insights. The benefits are, more well known, and people are more likely to go to their insights team for help. And I think they're busier than they've ever been. I think this idea of, oh, you should consider the customer is not such a crazy notion. It's more common than not. So I think in many ways it's harder to get a hold of them and get your request in because they are busy. But I do think that just the customer in general, my sense is that it's more present. People are openly talking about being customer focused, customer obsessed. Like Amazon talks about being customer obsessed, and it's just, I think it's more mainstream. Whereas I think when I first got into insights, it was like it's just it's the Ford attitude of like, if I asked them, then they would have told me. If I asked the customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, which, by the way, is one of my favorite sayings because it actually proves the difference between research and insights. Because actually, if you listen to what he says, a good researcher would have heard that and said,
speed.
They need speed. Exactly.
They need speed.
They need speed.
Of the horse, they need speed. So
exactly.
There is an insight. It just, you need a smart person.
Exactly.
So it's not what they said. It's not what they said. Never
Exactly.
report back. It's not what they said. It's what they mean.
Exactly.
Because let's go back to what language was invented to do, to talk about what was happening.
Yeah.
So, there's some languages. So I'm not sure if because I don't speak Russian. I just went there for a few months for research. And it's such a fabulous thing. But yeah.
You don't speak Russian?
I don't, but I lived there for a few months for research, but for field work. But it was really interesting how I was told by my interpreter over there that there were 7 different words to talk about to express seven different levels or types of sadness.
Oh, wow.
Because it spoke to the culture.
I was going to say, yeah.
Whereas, like we were talking earlier about English and French and how that, so if you are multicultural, if you're into language, you understand that you already have that hypersensitivity with regards to like words matter, but it's also going beyond the words. So to your point, Henry Ford, yes, but use that quote differently.
Oh my God.
Don't use the quote to talk about, let's not ask consumers and let's not talk to them. Use the quote to say, this is what a bad researcher's interpretation and analysis is versus a good one.
I love that that's the quote that people use against research, because in my mind, that is the perfect example of research versus insights.
But I think it's just proof that it's part of your DNA and you see beyond it versus just reporting back and taking it literally at face value.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and back to the little girl example, if I wasn't listening to her, I would have gone back and said, okay, that is a bad, like my takeaway from that conversation with her would have been, she doesn't like that mermaid. Guys, you need to do new mermaids. And for me, I was like, who cares about this particular, I just unlocked a new way to do research. Like, this is crazy. And so I think you got to look beyond it for sure.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of, there's like an article, a scientific article, there's research that you go, if you not ask why, could use the wording why, because people get defensive. Yeah. But there is this notion that if you pull back every layer and say, what do you mean by that? Tell me more. And then you have 7 doors. You have 7 sort of levels layers down.
I heard 5. I love 7. Okay.
And it's going. 7. Wow. By the time you hit the 7, then usually you go around and you go back. But you typically have 7 to unpack. And so that's why somewhere I've done IDIs on yogurt and, and fat-free yogurt, which goes back to how do you manage your weight and blah, 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 and all of that. And, 45 minutes in, which is your weight over your course of your life using that methodology. I had a respondent crying because of like cancer and blah, 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 and adopt a child and the role of food and all of that and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's where like just probing also means a lot. So back to your point, just don't stop at the first answer either.
Right. Yeah.
And make sure you do pull back the layers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never cried over yogurt before, but
No.
yeah, maybe
haven't either.
frozen yogurt, Häagen-Dazs after a breakup, but not.
But not
I've
like
been married to them.
defrosted yogurt. That's
Yeah, no,
crazy.
not- Yeah, for sure. It was very insightful. Let's put it
I'm
that
sure.
way.
I'm
Yeah, it was a
sure.
really there's I think that's the beauty of doing what we do. I think it's this notion of just sitting down and I feel like there's such privilege in people being so honest and sort of generous with us.
Agree.
I'm always so grateful that I get to sort of be in the nook in that way with some people and really sort of go in deep, and it's really interesting.
I agree. I think, what's difficult, I think, or challenging in this role though, is you kind of have to, so it's almost like those birds that, those birds that fly really high and then they like dive into the ocean and eat the fish. And then I always think of that. It's like, okay, we have to think up here. We have to think big picture strategy. What is the grand scheme of things? Then we have to dive in. We need people like you because I can't do it, but you dive right in, open up their hearts and minds, figure out what's going on in there, and then shoot back up, because you can't hand that information over to a marketer and say, now go make a good ad, or go, or a merchant and say, now change your catalog.
Mhm.
And so I think it's in the, the, I don't know, like, I'm getting a vision of like when you knit a sweater and then you like pull on the string and like unravels. So you need to like unravel
Yeah.
to figure out the actual string, and then you need to sew it back up, and so that it makes sense. Because I think that's what was so great about working with you, was that you wouldn't give me crumbs. You wouldn't come back with like, okay, so they're really emotional about yogurt. You really got to do something about that. Like,
And that's not true. That's not it at all. Yeah.
That's not the point. But some people, either don't get to the emotion,
Yeah.
or get there and don't know how to bring it back up, because I can't do anything with just a bunch of people crying over yogurt, which we're obviously
so it's
killing the
interesting how
analogy.
when you're talking with people, you do want to, well, not cry necessarily, but you do want to get to that level of like not filtered in depth.
Yeah.
But to your point, if you go back and just report back and just give you a whole bunch of crumbs, what does it mean? Like and you can't build a story around that. There's nothing meaningful around that. People are just going to walk away and say it's too complex.
Yeah.
I think there's a simplicity. I think there's a real teaching aspect to our jobs as well that comes back. So this notion of making it, not dumbing it down, but making it simple, making it.
You have to.
It's like decomplexifying the complexity of humans.
Yeah.
That's a human truth. And, some people are faster at doing it than others. And I think it's if you're hardwired, I think your questions can be smarter, and you can be smarter and more efficient in your entire journey. So you're not stuck at the end with, little big data, I like to call, and just, we also don't charge by the slide. I had that conversation with someone at the QRCA the other day. I was doing a talk on reverse engineering sort of reports and blah, 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 to make it sort of business impactful and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there's someone that asked a brilliant question, which I think everybody had, and she was brave enough to ask the question, which I thought was amazing. And I thanked her for her question. And she said, but they're paying me so much. I feel like I need to just like, I'm like, do you charge by the slide? She's like, but I feel like I need to. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with a very lengthy appendix.
Yeah, 100%.
If you want to.
That's
But,
right.
I mean, the stuff you present, do you really need to present more than like 20 slides? Like no one can remember more than 5 things.
And they don't want it. I learned
No.
that very early on. I would have conversations with all of my vendors to be like, please appendix your life away. Fine. But don't give me a deck that I need to go through. I have to go through. I will in my own leisure,
Yeah.
but I'm running from meeting to meeting, and I need to just be able to move along. And then I translated the insights into a 1-pager for my internal people, because I'm like, that's all they could handle.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. And I think it's worse than ever. I think our phones are 2 minute. I
Yeah.
think TikTok, Twitter, I think everything is making us a bit more, what's the headline?
Yep.
And it's interesting how I always humor and I said the elevator pitch used to be up to the CEO, which was
Yeah.
like 40 floors up, 20 floors up. Now the CEO is on floor 3.
Right.
Like,
It's on the third floor. Exactly.
yeah, your
Yeah.
elevator pitch really needs to be to be tight.
Well, I think, and that gets back to my earlier point around knowing your audience. And if you are, if you go to these business meetings with them and you see that this is how they talk, it's a half-hour meeting and everybody's like this, like, then it doesn't make any sense. Why would you possibly hand them a 200-page deck or a 100-page deck? Because when exactly are they going to read that?
And because you're more on the user side of
Yeah.
research now, is there an example that you can share of just an insight that stuck because of the way it was presented or what it was, something that really stuck and transformed either the business decision or strategy?
That's a hard question. I told you I'm very critical. It's hard to come by a really good insight. I cannot think of one recently. No. No. I'm because I always say a lot of insights masquerade, or a lot of facts masquerade as insights. And so I've been given a lot of facts, that, a bunch of facts can make an insight, but if one's missing, then you don't get there. It's a great question. I cannot think of one.
And so do you think we're talking about insights more than ever before, which is great.
Yes. Great.
And it's part of your DNA. Consumer, like, businesses are more consumer centric and so forth. So everything's great in that sense, but are we a little bit too loose? Are we getting loose with the word insight?
Oh, 100%. I mean, yes, I think we are, but I think we always were. I don't know that it's gotten worse or better.
Okay.
I was just always very critical. I remember sitting with my team and I would look at their insights and I'd be like, that's not an insight. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's an interesting fact. This is not, but that's a fact.
Yeah.
And I would be really ruthless with, is this, for an insight to be a good insight, it had to give me goosebumps and it had to feel true and it had to be an aha. And I had a very high threshold for an insight. Not all insights are going to be profound. I get that. But then that's okay. But then don't call it an insight. Just be like, here are some really interesting things that came out of this research. And there are those I've had really interesting things that have come out of research. But I save the word, words matter. I save the word insight for when it's really profound. And now you can take that and unlock something incredible for your business.
Yeah. And not every piece of research should have an insight as a deliverable. Some that we work on don't have the word insight as part of the brief because it's not part of the deliverables. It doesn't mean you're not doing meaningful work and not moving the business forward if you're not uncovering an insight.
100%.
It could just be a learning that you need. It could be a key takeaway. It could be, I think there's also that. And now we're going down a rabbit hole because it's you and I, but now we're using, I'm hearing human truth as kind of the new. Yeah.
Sure. But that's got to be really deep then. That's got to be.
That's like the new insight. Human truth is what I call an insight.
Yeah. Well, then, I almost like that better because then you can't say, they like yogurt. I don't know, as an insight. Exactly. Yeah. Because is that a human truth? Is it though? Really? Okay, sure. Let's because in an insight, it's actually interesting because an insight to me puts the onus on the researcher to figure it out and get to the epiphany, whereas a human truth is more on the human. It's just like, this is what I've learned about them. This is what I've heard from them. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's an interesting transition where it's moving away from the onus being on the person doing the research and onto the individual who has this truth.
Or they're separate things. Maybe a human truth can just be an observation. And it is just a way to report back just on human behavior. I don't know. I'm on the fence.
Yeah. Okay. I got to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to have wine over that one.
Noodle on that one for a little bit.
So any word of advice, because you're stepped out, it's part of your DNA. Any words of advice or words of wisdom for people who want to, have that kind of impact, that kind of thinking, be customer or consumer obsessed, sort of make sure it's part of their DNA. Any words of wisdom?
On the insight side or the business side?
I think on the
On
business side, like
the
use your
business side?
current role.
So first of all, yes. Second of all, like do it. Be consumer centric and obsessed. Second, I would say hire for people who are not everybody does genuinely care about human truths, insights. They just kind of want to charge ahead with their ideas. So I would hire for people who want that. And then on the business side, I would say just involve your insights partners as much as you can, because I benefited the most, and the businesses that benefited the most from me and my team and my and the insights that we were able to deliver were the ones that kept us close.
Yeah.
And if I don't know you and I don't know your business, you're on your own. I can't help you. So I think on the flip side, the businesses that bring them in, and listen, not all insights teams are great. And I think sometimes you can get really frustrated as a business, on the business side, that you can't either get to them or get the questions you want or get the answers you want, or you do get information, but it doesn't feel insightful. And so I think all the more reason, just like work with them and don't come to them with, I need a focus group. Come to them with like, this is my problem and why. Like, that's the other thing. Don't just say, I want to know, how long women are staying, trying on clothes in the change room. Yes, you want to know that, but why? Why is that important? Oh, it's because you're building a new store and you want to know how many change rooms to put in there, or like help your insights person help you. It's like a Jerry Maguire, like help me help you kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because if the more guarded you are with your information, the less they know and the less they can help you.
I feel like it needs to just be a highway, just full transparency on either side. And also I'm hearing that as an insights, if you're the insights lead, ask questions, insert yourself.
Yeah.
And also it goes both ways. If
Yep.
you are someone who's on your side now of the business, you do need to involve them. You do need to, and how do you make that relationship work?
I mean, I think it goes back to just being friendly and being you have to be friendly. You have to be friends. You have to get along. It's just like any other relationship where, if you don't know this person and you suddenly invite them to your team meeting, but there's no foreplay before or after, then it's not going to work. So I think my advice to everybody is just get to know everybody and work with everybody, whether you're on the insights team or the business, because it's just, I'm all about transparency. And I remember being like that with you on the vendor side as well. So I was super transparent with my colleagues. I was super transparent with you, and I would tell you, I'd give you the full backstory. And there's a risk there because, I trusted you, but not all vendors are, as respectful of intel. So I think obviously be careful with how you share that information. But I always felt like, what's the worst? Like, what is the big leak here? Like, what's the worst case? So, oh my God, somebody knows that Target is doing research on, Canadians in Quebec. Like, oh my God, like,
Yeah,
how bad can that be? Like, or, some Target is trying to figure out what their value problem is. Like, okay, like it's not that big of a deal. Your competitors are not that obsessed with you. Like, just the upside of being transparent with your research partner is so much greater than, oh my God, they're going to talk.
And I mean, we have a code of ethics, NDAs and MSAs. Like, I mean, there's a lot of acronyms and paperwork.
And I never cared.
Do you need, so I understand the trust factor and the loyalty as well. Like, I'm very loyal in that sense, but, and I have client partnerships that, span 20 years, but I think that's kind of it's the partnership, it's the trust. So I understand that. I hear you on the trust with a vendor. Do you need the same level of trust within the organization, or you're kind of on the same team, so you just need a partnership?
No, you absolutely do, because if they come to, like, I'm just remembering, like, if
Mhm.
somebody from the business came to me and asked me a question and I didn't deliver,
Mhm.
I'm not going to ask again in a hurry.
Mhm.
And I'm out of business and I'm a service, department.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's imperative, that that trust is there. Or even worse, I tell them something that's wrong. Like, I felt the weight of that on me
Mm.
all the time, of like, oh my God, what if I'm wrong? What if this is not the insight? What if this is, so I think there's a lot there in both ways, to just keep the conversation going and make sure you give them the right details. Like, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you do have to build a credibility for yourself and
Yeah.
just deliver over and over again, because you are a service. You are
Yes.
there to help them.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you lose sight of that, then
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
and it's I considered, whether or not I was as important as I felt, I considered the service that I was providing as imperative. I, like, was very passionate about it and really thought that it was important. And
Mhm.
so I took a lot of pride in the work that we did in our
Mhm.
team, and the insights that we shared. And I really felt like we were pivotal for the business and that they were relying on our insights.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believe that.
And now that you're out of insights, and you've been
Yeah.
out of insights for almost a decade now, for
Yeah.
quite some time. Let's not tell people their age. So we're still very young though.
Very young.
And we're
I was
very young.
an infant when I started.
Yeah, there you go. This is my first career. That's always what I say. I was 19, literally.
Right.
Been at it for a while. I feel inclined to tell people my age when I tell them how old the company is.
You don't need to.
Found it.
Well, that you're not in
Um,
danger of anyone thinking you're 50, whatever,
yeah,
50 something.
well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. But is there something, now that you've ventured out of insights, insights are part of your DNA. It
Yeah.
is kind of who you are. How does it make you better on this side, in these roles now of marketing and merchandising, and sort of more on the business side?
I think what's great is that before, when I was on the insights team, my presence would be the thing that would remind people to think about the customer.
Mm.
Literally, I'd walk into the room and like, oh, the insights lady is here. Don't forget the customer. And whereas now, because I'm embedded in the business and they don't necessarily think about the customer, I have an opportunity to again be the person in the room, just be like, oh, is that really what they would do? Like,
Mm.
are you sure about that? Like, is that how they think? Do you do that? I don't think so. Like, I kind of call bullshit a little bit, because I can do that in the world, because
Mhm.
and it's okay that they're not always. I think I just want to stress this. Like, it's okay that merchants don't always think about the customer first every time. I want them to think about them eventually, but they also need to think about the sales and the top line and the margin and the flow and the vendors and all of these other things. So they have a lot of other things to worry about. Whereas when I was in insights, I had the luxury of just thinking about the consumer all day long.
Mm.
And that's something that I think consumer people need to appreciate, that it's your job to think about the consumer all day long. It is not
Yeah.
their job to think about the consumer all day long. It's their job to consider the consumer when they're making big decisions or
Mm.
decisions. Just like I want my supply chain person thinking about supply chain all day long, and I want my finance person thinking about finance all day long. And so just because it's so saying that you are customer forward or customer obsessed doesn't mean you only think about the customer. You also have to, and that's again going back to when I would declare myself, I would almost be like defensively being like, I'm not an insights person, I'm a business person. And
Mhm.
that means I care about the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I am not just like, because I've had these conversations with many people where it's like, okay, well, if we only thought about the customer, then everything would always be on sale. Everything would be, buy one, get one, and we'd be out of business. So
Mhm.
let's be real. We can't always give the customer exactly what they want in every way.
Yeah.
But I think, okay, let's understand that they appreciate promotions. They need some relief. They need to be invited, enticed, whatever. And let's build that into our promotional plan.
Yeah.
And so I think now that I'm not in that role with like the scarlet letter of consumer insights on my forehead, I can actually kind of get into those meetings that are hard to get into and have those conversations and point out to people and get them to think about the customer kind of like from the inside, without, and for that reason, maybe I am less reliant on an insights team, to be honest, because maybe that's at the core of your previous question. Because I kind of feel like I already represent it. Like I don't need you to come into my meeting because I'm in the meeting.
Fair.
And hopefully I'm infecting my team with this idea of, did you think about, is that really how they shop? Is that what they do? Is that what they like? Is that what they want? Because that's the hope, right? That you can multiply yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. We need a photocopier to actually close the house.
I was like, what? Okay. Yes.
No. We just need to, photocopiers are a dying breed, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
Okay. This is a brilliant conversation. I do want to be mindful of your time. Up to a certain point, we could go on forever.
We could go on.
I mean, we could just keep having, we need food at one point and substance and whatnot. But that being said, we could go on. I'm very proud of us because we usually get into this vibe of like, we listen to each other, but actually are so enthusiastic and passionate about what we talk about.
We spark.
And so we talk over one another. So I'm really happy we actually were able to
be respectful.
Well, be respectful of our listeners.
Yes.
I think that's more so it. So I always, I come with a French twist, always.
Yes.
I am scarfless today, but still. And so I really, really I'm a question girl. So I really, really like ending every single podcast episode with sort of Bernard Pivot's Bouillon Culture. And it's just a snippet. So it's like 4 questions. I didn't take all of his 10 questions. I only took 4, which I thought were really about this notion of inspiration and whatnot. So here's the first one. Ready?
Okay. Yeah. Hit me.
What profession other than your own would you like to try?
I think if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be a lawyer. I'd like to argue and win. Win a case.
Is it argue and win, or is it prove a point in order to win?
Sure. I want to prove a point, but I want to win.
She's like, regardless, I want to win.
Yeah, I can prove a point.
What about winning?
It's great. Don't you love winning? Who doesn't like to win?
I totally love winning. I
much better than losing.
Although, as a parent, I'm like, losing is a teachable moment. It's like, it's humbling. There's something there. You need to lose once in a while.
Sure. You don't want to win every time, but I like to win a lot.
I like to win a lot. Yeah. I'm highly competitive. Yeah.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's more satisfying though, when you win because you were right. Like you proved a point and you were right, versus winning I like winning with my brain.
I agree.
Because I was able to get buy-in and get people just explain and level with me. Just let me walk you through it.
I agree.
I've won arguments. That's really satisfying.
I've won arguments with my husband where I feel like I just wore him down, which is not the same as winning. It's just I give up. Fine.
Yeah.
You don't want to win on a fine.
Arguing. Yeah. I don't like fighting and arguing.
No.
Harmony.
No, we weren't fighting. We would just be discussing. And I think I would just I could wear him down. I am able to convince people. And that's obviously not the same as winning. I'm not trying to, it's more, when I said lawyer, it's more about just winning a case and freeing someone, or, overturning a case, or I don't know, being, it's more about, it's actually the core, I think, is more about fairness and equality and just bringing more justice to the world.
You're such a Libra.
I know, right?
Oh, we're both Libras. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What is your favorite word?
So actually, it sounds related. I love the word relentless. An old boss of mine called me that once, and I really like that. I like the idea of just not giving up. And I say that to my kids all the time. I'm like, when do we give up? Never. Are we giving up? No. This idea of just never give up and just being relentless. And if at first you don't succeed, try again. I really like the word relentless.
Do you know when to quit?
Sometimes. I'm trying to think of a time when that happened.
I had to ask people, when do you know when to quit?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what
Uh,
does that mean and look like? Just because I was persevering to a fault.
yeah. I
Cases.
probably don't, to be honest. This is starting to feel like a therapy session. But I probably don't. I mean, I obviously eventually you just yeah, I think you just realize that this is a dead end and you're like, okay.
Mm,
So you
yeah.
redirect your energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acceptance. What is your least favorite word?
So I really had to think about this, and it didn't come to. I had a really hard time thinking about this, and then it came to me. I loathe when my kids say whatever. It just infuriates me. It's like if you say something, if it came out of your mind and out of your mouth, and then don't like stand up for it. Like like let's get it out. Don't just like it's like this half, it's like this giving up, like, just I don't know, it just is like the worst. And
Mm,
you say it with just like whatever. Like whatever you say it, even if you say if you do the eye roll teenage whatever, that's bad. And if you do the hunched over, like, whatever, like, that's
yeah.
depressing too. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I hate it in every way. Very passionate
I
about
know
it.
your context, so it's even more revealing because I
Yes.
know so much more about you.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I'll drink to that one. I really hate it when someone comes up to me and says, "We can't," or "It won't
Yes.
work," or
Yeah.
yeah, that really gets to me.
Do you ever like but does is it ever like, "All right, okay, yeah, that won't work." Like, is that what do you ever get
So
there, or are
yeah,
you
yeah, I'm not stupid. I own the business, and we've been, like
so what is
successful
it about
growing
it?
for. So I am super creative. So it was funny because I've had a leadership coach for a really long time, and it was a lot of leadership coach are a bit. Yeah, it depends on your leadership coach, but there is something about like the board
Yeah.
and manifesting stuff and blah 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 and all of that. And there's this notion throughout COVID that people were saying, "I don't believe in unicorns anymore."
And unicorns?
In unicorns
What
anymore.
does that
Like
mean?
that became a thing. I don't believe that like people were so pragmatic and so like short-term focused that they were having trouble sort of envisioning the future
Okay.
and sort of seeing it bright and blah blah blah. So because they were like more inner focused versus outer directed and sort of
Right.
which happened quite a bit to a lot of leaders and a lot of people and so forth. But it was really interesting how my leadership coach at one point said, you don't like that word and you do not like problems because first you like to solve them and you thoroughly believe that there are so many solutions
Yeah.
that there are no problems. That's how creative I am. And
Well,
she's like,
it's also
you're the,
your job. Like,
yeah.
how would you possibly do your job well if somebody comes to you with a problem and you're like, "Yeah, no, I can't tell you why people don't like yogurt." Like,
Yeah, I
that's
think beyond that, there is this notion of doing field work in multiple countries and multiple like I've done field work in 20 different countries over
yeah.
the course of my career. There's just something about like I've like just a basic example of I am going to Toronto to do groups. And you're like, okay, I'm taking the plane. Corporate policy is 3 flights or 2 flights before. So you like, there's room in the winter to take the train if ever, like you're grounded because of snow and so forth. So all of that. And then I'm on the plane and the plane lands in Ottawa.
Right.
Like, okay. I think there's also that, like that just happens.
Yeah.
In my life, like that
Yeah.
could be my Tuesday.
Right.
And so I think there's this notion of there's so much stuff that can go wrong that it's not about seeing unicorns, it's about being a unicorn.
Well,
And
it's
sort
controlling
of
what we can control.
yeah, and it's also the fact that, you know what, don't throw it out there. You don't want that to manifest. You
Fair.
want like the fact that you're gonna land in Toronto on time.
To be
Yeah.
the thing you're
Yeah.
shooting for. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like
I think
that.
there's something that, yeah. And then the last question,
Yes.
what's the best thing a mentor has told you in terms of advice or wisdom or guiding principles that still to this day you use? Still to this day kind of is a guiding North Star or guiding sort of principle for you?
This one's really hard. I mean, I've had some really great bosses who have said everything from, very tactical things to very kind of profound things. I think I did have one boss and slash mentor um, who it's not so much what she said, but it was watching her and just this idea of just care about people.
Hmm.
And I think that's my guiding star with my teams. I care. I just genuinely care. And I
Mhm.
care about them as like I want to know what's going on in their life. Not invasive, but just like, are you good? Are you happy? Are you engaged? Are you having a baby? Are you like, did you go shopping on the weekend? Whatever. And then are you satisfied in your career? Do you feel like you're growing? Do you feel like you have somewhere to go? And I've said to many people on my team at times, even if they were top performers, that I understand that you're frustrated, and if you do, I don't want you to leave, but if you do, I will help you. Like I just genuinely care, and I think that you just all good comes from that. If they know you care, they care back, and it creates a really nice team environment. And I think that's what I got from her. She just genuinely cared, and from the direct reports to theirs and theirs and theirs. I feel like if I do that, then everything else kind of falls into place.
Yeah.
And obviously there's caring about the business, but like, I feel like you got to care about the people, and people know if you don't care about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And you don't get the best, especially these days, you don't get the best out of people if you don't
No.
care about them. Yeah.
No.
There is something, I think we do have a responsibility to show up for people too.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
don't show off, just show up. Just show
Yeah.
up. Like, but in meaningful ways. Don't
Yeah.
just be present, or present, not physically present, but be present, like mindful, and sort of be.
Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
it shows up. I mean, when you care about somebody, it shows up in other ways. Like you're not late for meetings. You don't cancel meetings at the last minute. You come prepared for meetings. Like, it just permeates from
Yeah.
the ground up. And I've had people, I've had people in the organization who declare that they care about people, but they don't. And so then the teams can sense that. And they're like, well,
Mhm.
no, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't, I haven't had a one-on-one with you in months, or what, like, so I think I care. I genuinely care. And then it's important to me that they know that I care.
Mhm. And I think you're right. If you actually it's just part of your DNA. And if you just do
Yeah.
care, then it will show up without you knowing or acting. Like it's just, so I do remember, I think one of the first times we met was that you were speaking.
Yeah.
And I remember I wasn't in the first row because I don't do that.
No, you're
I'm
like
not the
5
amp.
back.
I usually sit at the really right, like back.
Yeah.
I get really introverted in conferences. Anywho, but
I do, by the way.
Anyways, so I was super quiet at the back, but then you came up to me and said, it's like you were the only one truly listening and looking.
You were. I remember you looking at me. I was like, I was talking to you the whole time. I was making eye contact with you the whole time, and you were nodding, and you were like agreeing with me and laughing at my jokes, and like, and we connected even though it was a room full of people.
Yeah.
And I was presenting, and I genuinely, I remember that. I remember you sitting on the left-hand side of me, and you were in the back, and that's how you make connections. That's how you make human connections.
And that's how you care.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just care, and that happens.
Yeah.
You don't sit there saying, "Oh, I need to
care.
intently sort of make her
Right.
feel like I'm answering, like I'm listening." You just sit there and you care.
That's
And
right.
that kind of happens.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, we have to wrap this up.
I love this. This was so fun.
But this was so insightful, so fun. I'm so happy we did this. It's been a long time coming.
Me
so
too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Take care. Insightful Inspiration, your trusted market research podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with your network, and we'd love it if you could leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. For more on this episode and others, head over to celesco.com. And remember, insight isn't just about what we uncover, it's how we let it shape our actions. Until next time, stay curious, be kind, and keep seeking inspiration.